All right. Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of the Deep Conversations podcast with Tiffany Michele and Sylvester the Vet. This first episode will be an introduction to Tiffany Michele and letting the world hear about her story. So, from there, Tiffany,
Hello.
hey, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm doing good.
Yeah?
Yeah. Um, can't complain.
Can't complain.
No.
Um, so, a lot of people are going to learn about us
Mm-hmm.
through this podcast. And one of the questions that I want to start off asking is, who are you?
That's like the biggest existential question that we all, I guess, deal with of who are we in our existence. But what I have learned, I'm still learning, is not to define myself on who I am based off of who I am to other people. So like being like, oh, I'm a mother and I'm a sister. I think we tend to do that. We label ourselves with what our roles are, our jobs are. So I've really been thinking about that question a lot. I think, to put it simply, I am a bunch of things. I am feisty. I'm crazy. I am silly. I am a defender. I tend to want to stick up for people. I definitely can defend myself. I stick up for myself.
Now, I think I done heard you say that like 3 times. Are you going to fight me at any point in
Don't try
time?
me. I mean, not unless I have to. Like I'm cool until I'm not. That's what I always say.
Okay, I just asked that you tell me if I become offensive or anything like that. I
Well, then what
mean,
would be the
you know
fun?
my mouth.
What would be the fun if I told you I was about to just no, the element of surprise. So,
But I like my throat.
all right, then protect your neck and make sure stay on the up and up. But no, but I definitely, for me, it's hard to clearly say like, okay, I'm this thing, because I feel like it changes. I'm so many different things. I just feel like it depends on what's going on that day, how I slept. But in a nutshell, I'm a very loyal person. Like I said, how I'm cool until I'm not. I will get along with anybody until you give me reason not to. But essentially, that's, I'm just a laid back, chill person. But I can, be intense depending on what it is. But that's me.
I mean, I can definitely understand that. Just make sure people out there, you don't mess with Tiffany Michele. She's serious about her stuff.
But I'm very nice too.
You are very nice, and I've gotten the opportunity to meet you, and there's I think there's a lot to your story that people need to hear,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm thankful for this connection that we've made, because some of the stories that you've told me are very interesting, and especially about your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so, do you mind kind of diving into, some of that story for the people out there?
Yeah. Well, I come from a family where there's an older sister, an older brother, and I have a twin brother. Growing up, people thought me and my sister were the twins,
I
because
can see that.
we're all like, right behind each other in age. So a lot of times people would confuse my mom as a daycare worker because she had so many kids, but they were all look about the same age. So like it'll be a Friday night and my mom would order the pizza. The delivery lady would come and she'd go, "You're still watching kids this late?" My mom would say, "No, they live here. Like, I'm not." And so like we were like the go-to kids in the neighborhood. So like if somebody was having a birthday party for a kid, they would come to the littles and say, "Hey, can you?" Because we were like the right amount. It's like, but it was also hard growing up, especially I think any kid growing up in the '90s, because like we had a lot of autonomy. Our parents were working. We were latchkey kids, so we ran around the neighborhood and got into all kinds of stuff. Like I don't even know how we're still alive, but it created a certain toughness that we had to have too, because we also grew up in a household where my father had a drug addiction, and so that made for a lot of colorful people around, a lot of crazy situations. And to most people, like, you would hear these stories and you'll say, oh, it's just sad, but like we learned to like find the humor in things. So like now when we look at those memories that like where it could make us sad, we're like, we can always like remember that time when, you know, dad climbed down the balcony because he owed the guy money and he didn't want him to see him coming out the front door. And I asked him like, how are you going to get back up? And he was like, the same way I came down. Like, you know, my dad was like almost a superhero in a sense, with the antics that went along with having a parent that had a drug addiction. So um, but I got a good work ethic from him. Like, my dad was a hardworking man though, and I know this sounds kind of like crass to say, but there's nothing like a person that has an addiction, and how resourceful they can be. And seeing my dad hustle and work, and he used to be a metro worker, so I used to work for the metro. So watching him, you know, hustle and work, and he always kept a job, whether he was on somebody's roof doing redoing the shingles or painting. He always had a job, and so I think he kind of instilled that in me. So I stay keeping the job. I think my name needs to be Tiffany Stays with a Job Arbor, because I do a little bit of everything. And like sometimes when you talk, like I'll say, "Oh yeah, you know, I used to work there," or "I used to." Do
Yo, I seriously, I don't know if there's not a something you have not done. Seriously.
I know. And it's like I don't know how not to work. Yeah, but yeah, working was always something. I think I had my first job at the age of 12, and I've been working ever since. So like at 38, I do feel like okay, I'm due for retirement. Um, but yeah, but just some of the jobs I've had was just like being a summer camp counselor, and then I worked in a gas station. I was a barista at Starbucks. I was the world's worst barista at Starbucks, because if anybody knows me, if there's something hot, a way for me to injure myself, I will do it. Burn myself, scald myself, cut myself. I started working, and there was this guy from Lithuania, and at the time my hair was short like this, and so he was very interested in like what my head felt like my hair. And I just remember him asking one day, we were like in the back, and he goes, "Can I touch your hair?" And this is after him staring at me for like a long time. And so I goes, you know, I say, "Sure, if I can touch yours." And so he was like, "All right." So he's hands in my head, mine in his, and I'm touching his. And so
Now we did that when I was in like elementary school. You
hmm
know, if you let me touch yours, I touch you could touch mine. But this is different. This is
yes,
just hair.
this is just hair.
Okay, all
Yes, there was nothing else.
right.
But
Hair on the head.
on the head.
Okay, all right.
But so we're having this moment, and so my brother, he's walking in. It's like a swinging door, so he like walks in, sees us, and then he just spins back around and walks right back out. And so then like we get done, and then my brother, I'm like, so why'd you walk out so fast? He said, I don't know what y'all were doing. He said, I didn't know if I needed to fight him or like I had to have a talk. Like I was just confused. It was a lot of stuff, and he's like, I said, you weren't gonna sing. He's like, no, I was just gonna walk back out. But I was a terrible barista, because I also don't like to be told what to do. I ended up leaving and going back to work, like office work and stuff. But
So what was your? So when did you first start working?
I was 12.
You were 12 years old,
Yes.
and so at 12 years old,
hmm
and you know we understand, and I heard you say that you know your father had an addiction, and so you having to grow up and your siblings having to grow up
hmm
in that situation. What were the reasons why you like were
We
you
were poor.
forced
No,
to work at 12, and what type of jobs were you able
no.
to get at
Well,
12? Because
I know, like child
didn't
labor
you,
laws.
yeah, don't you have to be like 14 or 15 at least?
Well, the thing is,
Were
I
you
was
a
a summer
volunteer?
camp. No, I got paid. I
You
was,
got paid at 12. Oh, you know what? My sister did get paid to be a summer camp
yeah,
counselor.
it was so stressful. Like, oh my God, I have to keep these kids alive until their parents come. And so I just remember we went to, I think at the time it was called, you remember like that amusement park. Now it's Six Flags, but
It was Wild
Wild
World.
World. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
Wild
it was
World.
when I was going. But at the time it was Adventure World.
Yes, anybody from the DMV, they will know Wild World, Adventure World. It
Mm-hmm.
changed names 1,600 times.
Yes, they had that raggedy
Just
ass
like
white roller
everything.
coaster
Yeah.
that
They
did.
only had like two or three, and then they had the water park. That's why
Yes,
everybody
I
went
went.
there.
By the time it became Adventure World, that's when all the
Yep.
other
Yep.
and then that's also why I stopped messing with um, roller coasters. I got stuck on one, the
Ooh.
raggedy one. It was the white one, and it stopped. We were there for like maybe 20 minutes, and then when it started, it cranked back up and just. And I was just like, "Oh, I'm done. I've done it enough to know that's not for me."
Man, I saw something on TV the other day. It was either TV or probably social media. I don't know. And I really don't even watch TV that much. You know that.
hmm
But like roller coasters were just crashing.
See,
Yeah,
I
they
want to
shouldn't
know
show
who
people that
thought.
stuff.
Like, have you ever take
And
a
that's
step
like
back and be like, who came up with this? What sick person? Because I mean, to me, I feel like you have to be crazy to like. I'm gonna create this thing where it hurtles you through the air. You know, you won't feel your stomach and everything will like. I just feel like somebody was like very sadistic, like to be like, let's create this thing. You
yeah, it's
know,
called a scientist and an engineer, and
and
you
they,
put them both together,
and they're
and that's what you
crazy.
get. Oh yeah,
But this is for people's enjoyment, and then I kind of look at the people. I'm like, why do you
yeah,
like that? Like,
yeah. We get on it. Yeah.
yeah. But go back to the summer camp thing. We were at Adventure World. I had like maybe 4 to 6 girls, and one of the girls lost her shoes. And anybody
Mm.
knows that when you're out, it's all concrete. It's hot. The ground is hot. So I'm walking around with this little kid on my back the whole time
Aw.
because she lost her shoes. And I was just like, and I'm not gonna have her burning her feet on the asphalt. So that sucked. And I was just like,
Dang, yeah, you don't want the little kid going home with blisters, because
yeah. And you have
then,
to explain
right,
that.
yeah, exactly. You are the front line of defense for the rec center.
Yeah.
You are in trouble.
Yeah, so that was crazy. But in addition to like me working, I'm also one of those people who always has a story for something, like because crazy shit happens. Excuse my language. At the same
Oh
job.
no, this is our podcast. There are no excuses.
Okay.
There's no excuse for anything that we do. We just do it and
Because
we
I know I
say
have a
it.
potty mouth. So.
That's all right.
But I was 12 and I would take the bus, and I used to live out in like Camp Springs, Maryland, by Andrews Air Force Base. And so I would take not the metro, but the bus.
Hmm.
I would take that to go to. It was at my church. My church had a summer camp, and I would see the driver, and he'd always say hi. He was an older man, like older man, and I'm 12, and so one day I get off work, and where I got off at the bus at, I saw I would have to walk a little ways. He was sitting in the parking lot in his
Hmm.
car, like waiting for me. Yeah. Yes. And so that's something I had to deal with a lot growing up too, was like basically predatory men, like as a kid. And it's because my mom, like I said, she had 4 kids and she was working and she was not there. And it'll be like we get up in the morning and she'd already be at work. So we had to get up and get ourselves dressed, eat breakfast, and get to school on time. And like I learned how to be independent. I learned how to be, self-starting, because there wasn't an adult around to tell you, do this, do your homework, make sure you clean up and this and that. And so that is how I started to learn how to cook at an early age, because my mom wasn't there. So like I'm like the youngest, but I'm the one cooking for my siblings, and but I also meant I got burnt a lot.
Mm.
So like I would go to school with burns, and after a while they'd be like, what's going on, and even then you would think nowadays if my kids went to school with burns, like they'd be trying to take my kids away, but
Yeah, that's like Penny from Good Times.
yeah.
You remember
Except
that?
my mama would
Yeah,
burn me with no iron.
yeah, that wasn't an iron. So, so it sounds like you were the nurturer. You were the one that kind of kept the family together, the glue.
hmm
Um, how's that dynamic now?
I,
Now
f-
that you're older.
I feel like I'm still the glue, and it's weird because we all grew up in the same household, and we definitely all have love for one another, and if anybody were to call and say, "Hey, I need you to put on all black and help me bury his body," we'd be like, "All right," you know.
Hmm.
But I'm
Yeah,
the
because don't fuck with Tiffany Michelle.
shut
I've
up.
been telling y'all this from the beginning.
But no, but I have a relationship with my sister and one with my twin and my brother, my older brother Marcus. But they don't necessarily always have like the same relationship. So like I'm the one in the middle, kind of bridging things. So like when one is feeling some way, I have all the information, and I'm like, well, no, it's X, Y, and Z. Oh, I didn't know that, and I'm like, yeah, because y'all don't talk to each other.
Hmm.
So, being that glue sometimes is a gift and a curse, because then that means that everybody depends on you, and it gets to a point that it becomes your identity, and when you don't want to do it, they're looking at you like, what's wrong with you, or
Hmm.
like you're making some big offense when you're like, no, I simply just, I don't want to have to show up. I don't want to have to always answer that 3 a.m. call. I don't want to, and so going through that, it's still rough. But I'm working on identifying it and like when I see it and calling it out. Cause normally I have been taught to push my needs, my feelings down and just be there for everybody else. But over time I realized I had I was I had a lot of anxiety, but I was very high functioning. And it got to a point where I kept ignoring that like something wasn't right. And I had to, my body just kind of like shut down. I was like, well, if you're not going to take care of it, then we're going to have to force you to sit down and take care of it. And so I ended up getting into therapy, and like that, this changed everything for me. And I started setting boundaries because that was an issue I had growing up in a household where like the adults don't respect your boundaries because you're a child and you just do. Um, so it's weird now, me being a parent. I think we all tend to do that. What we didn't have growing up, we want to give to our kids, and so for me, that thing is because I'm still like, look, I'm also like cheap. I can be cheap. I don't like this. Like, if it don't make sense, I'm not spending it. But so for me, it's not giving my kids a bunch of things that I didn't have. It's more about giving them the emotional things that I did not have growing up. So them being able to be heard, to say something's wrong and know that when I say that, my mom's going to do something about it.
Hmm.
Me teaching them what boundaries look like because I know what it felt like for me to have those boundaries pushed up against all the time, and you're speaking up and you're advocating for yourself, but they're just like, okay, whatever. So showing my kids what boundaries look like, and letting them know like it's okay to say no, it's okay to not want to do that. And sometimes like my family will look at me like, oh, you raising new age kids, and I'm like, no, this is healthy parenting, like this is
Hmm.
how it should look, and there's no excuse at this point to keep carrying that over.
I
So
mean, hey, call it what you want. Well, I mean, if it's new age, fine, it's new age.
they
But
doing something different.
right, it's different.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
So, and I care about what my kids think. I may overrule, it, but I still let them weigh in on it, so they
Hmm.
can feel like, okay, at least I got to say, it's not a do as I say, not as I do situation. Because really, there's a wonder that like we're out here functioning because growing up in the '90s, and parents like they didn't care. They were basically like, fuck your feelings, like, did not care.
Hmm.
And also, me growing up in a household where, like, I always had to put my mother's feelings before mine. And I was always managing up. And I was always, like, I was that kid. You could definitely tell, like, the typical, like, let me make sure the house is clean so that no one gets upset and there's no flaring up of tempers or whatever. And so I just, I got tired of that. I'm like, at 38, I was just like, I'm carrying it wasn't until therapy, but I was like, I'm carrying all these things from childhood, and this is why I'm getting what I'm getting in life because I'm still acting like that kid. And so when I just kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, I don't give a fuck about other people's feelings or opinions if it puts me in a bad spot. Like, I'm not saying that I'm not out here being empathetic to people, but if it means that it denies me something in any way,
Hmm.
I'm just gonna be like, no, like, I can't do it. So I've learned now to like walk away from things and people that, don't serve me or I just feel like, they could be a trigger to like the growth, or like making me go backwards in the growth that I've made. So um I'm definitely like in a new space. So I feel like Tiffany is definitely being reinvented. So like and it should change throughout the years. So like I'm definitely going through like a reemergence, and we've talked about this and you've seen it where like I was just kind of like behind the scenes. I was fine with being in the background and not realizing, even though I was in the background, there were people who wanted me to step forward, or be like, "Hey, you in the back," and I'm like, "No, no, look at me, look away." Like,
Well, I'm glad that we had that first conversation and started to get to know each other, because I knew from there, again, just hearing, just from that, what, 30-minute conversation, hearing a little bit there, and then over the last few months getting to know, what you represent and who you represent, has been wonderful. But again, I want to get this back to you, and not how I'm feeling about this connection.
hmm
Earlier, you mentioned your father being a superhero type of, character at times,
hmm
and just in my mind, I feel like that could be somewhat conflicting, since he was, battling with drug abuse, but in your mind, you still have that sentiment of him being a superhero.
hmm
Can you go into that a little bit, and then talk about who's your, who would you be if you were a super villain, or a villain or a superhero?
Well, yeah, my dad definitely, because I still had the traditional memories of like my dad teach me how to ride a bike,
Hmm.
and I remember the first time he tried to. I guess I wasn't getting the concept, so he decided to get on the bike. But back then, my dad was a lot heavier, and so he reminded me of like a circus bear, like on a bike. And I remember he looked back to see what I was watching, and I was on the ground, like, "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry, Dad." But it was like plumber butt, all that. But he was a superhero in certain regards. But I think for me, I think I would be a villain.
You would be a villain,
Villains always have the most fun, and they got the most flair.
but they never win at the end.
I know. I know. And I think why I'm drawn to the villain, because I've been the superhero so much in my life for other people and coming in and saving the day, and we're like, I don't want to do this. Like every villain has their origin story. So I was a superhero at one point and I got tired of saving ungrateful people, and I was like, fuck it.
I can definitely understand. I can definitely understand that you've talked about kind of changing and transforming, and I guess this is part of
Yeah.
it. So,
But think about it. When you think about the villains, Ursula had a whole swag.
hmm
Cruella, swag.
hmm
Shoot, the Joker had his flair. You know what I mean?
hmm
That's one thing you can't say. Like they dressed down. And the villains had capes and little tighties. You know.
So wait a minute. So just, and dang, you're making me think about this too. So, um, like Disney characters, and the cartoon characters, the
hmm
villains do always have the best songs too.
They got the best songs,
They
the best
always have the
clothes.
best songs. Yeah, the best clothes.
I'm
They
like,
typically have the best, uh whatever their secret move is.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, they usually have the best one, but somehow the hero wins. Like he
Yeah,
gets
you're
enough
just
energy
like,
bars or something to win at the
yeah.
end. All of a sudden he
They're like
wins.
your like a public. I look at superheroes like, especially in the comics, like public defenders.
Public
They
defenders.
poor. They don't
That's
really,
true.
cause look at y'all all wearing the same like outfit, basically just a different color. It's like a cape or something tight. Marvel maybe just started to judge it up when you have like Iron Man and stuff like that, but the villains always, cause even with the guy Thanos, I mean,
Hmm.
dude had jewels like.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, so I'm like, they look wealthy over there, like.
I do love. So for you, you were the hero,
Mm.
and have been, and I've seen you continue to be the hero, and you're looking to get some of that villainous, activity and mindset. How do you feel about when the villain becomes the hero at the end of the story?
um, I like it because I feel like at the end of the day, a lot of us are really are good people, but things happen, and and I don't think it's all bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but sometimes you have to. I think you have to be the villain in your story at some point,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it teaches you both. Like the superhero teaches you being empathetic and nurturing. The villain teaches you to take care of yourself. That's how I
Mm-hmm.
look at it. Because
Mm-hmm.
villains are all out for themselves. So when I say like being the villain, sometimes that means like I have to say no, I can't take you here. No, I can't show up and do this. Because at the end of the day, I need to take care of myself. So that may be I'm the villain outwardly because I'm not doing the thing you asked for, but I'm the superhero to myself because now I'm taking back some of that and saying like, no, it's too much on my plate. So.
And that goes to your point about therapy
Mhm.
and the importance of therapy
Yeah.
and being able to have that outlet to speak to people. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
One thing that I also wanted to ask you, you mentioned you had kids.
Mhm.
Um, what would you say today is the toughest challenge
Mhm.
with raising children today?
Um, I think the toughest challenge for me is I think any parent, but I'm always asking myself, am I screwing my kids up? you know, and the thing is, I know the answer is yes because you're never going to get it perfect.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I'm just like, I don't want to. I want to be mindful that I know that I'm probably not going to do something right. I mean, even if I do everything right, there's going to be something they're going to be like, you didn't do this, you didn't
Hmm.
do that. But it's just making sure that I'm doing the best that I can. Because I know I struggle with that. 'Cause it's like I felt like my mom definitely could have done more.
Hmm.
And so that's the one thing I don't want my kids. I want my kids to be able to say that my mom did her best, even if it wasn't perfect. She did her best, and not say come to me one day and say, you could have done more. You really could have. So I'm fine with that as long as they know that like mom did her absolute best, and like they're very much aware of um, how hard I work for them. So it's important that they see that I'm putting in the work. So like for an example, another job, I do Instacart deliveries, and like I brought them with me to do them so that they can see it. And then my son is just like, oh, I don't want nothing for Christmas.
Dang, man, you just gave me an idea. Shit. I'm out here spending all this money. I need to just go ahead and do Instacart for like 2 days. So then I don't have to get no girl.
but
Nah,
other,
that's sweet though. That's
but my
good.
youngest was still like Morgan, who's like the most like me. But she was just like, I'm not with it, and okay, you're gonna be able to pay me right after because I was like, I'll give each you $5 for like riding along. Morgan wanted to get paid in advance. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, Morgan, I'm good for it. Like, I'm your mom. Like, I basically give you your whole entire life. Like, and she's just like, oh, I said, I don't even get the money. I have to wait until like all the things clear. And she's just like, you don't have any cash on you now? Like, I was just like, dang, Morgan. I said, you need an advance? Like, I said, you hurting that bad? She was like, well, I do have things I want to get. I was like, so, but yeah, being a mom is going to be lots of like times when you're just questioning being a parent of, am I doing this right? Um, and I just tell myself the answer is no,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
there's no
yeah.
right or wrong way. Parenting to one child is different to another child, and even within my three kids, I know that I have to parent each one of them differently. One is more sensitive than the other. The other one's a little more tougher than the other. The other one's more aloof and just kind of like, as long as you feed me, like, don't talk to me, like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But having to, and I think that was missing growing up for me. My mom did not know how to individually parent us, and I think also the fact that we were similar in age, she just felt like, oh, I could just, but we all had different needs emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the thing, not taking a cookie cutter approach to raising your children and knowing that like you have to kind of literally meet them where they are and find a way to have your own relationship because parenting is overwhelming and exhausting, and you're not going to get like a trophy at the end of the day, at the end of the road of being like world's greatest mom. But it's fun. It can be fun. There are funny moments. There are infuriating moments, but I'm glad I have them. Like I can't imagine now like not having them. I remember imagining I would not have kids at all, but now that I have them, I'm like, oh, my kids are cool. Like like still sometimes don't fuck with everybody's kid.
Mm-hmm.
Not especially the ones that are like supposedly smart, and then, like, they just say things, and you're like, where are your manners at? Like, I know you're smart, but like that don't mean that you don't have good manners. So I'm definitely that typical black mom too. Like,
Uh-oh, that's a whole nother topic
yeah,
that we will address at another time.
yes.
But tell the people just a little bit. What does that mean? Because please tell the people what that means.
Well, black moms have a superpower. They can get you together with a look. Um,
Oh, I felt it.
See, and a lot of times, and the thing is, the way I parent is also how I do things at work. Like, I
Mm.
treat a lot of the people like my kids. So, like, somebody says something, I'm like, oh, what did you say? What was that? And I'll kind of catch me doing it, or you give them a look like, yo, one more time to come over here asking me to do something, like, But no, it's just like a thing that, like, I think instinctively happens to black women when they get kids. It's like, like, you can just look and the kids are like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, sorry, sorry. They'll backtrack, they'll check themselves without you even having to say anything. And I just remember, quick story, I was in a Dollar Tree and there was this kid like losing it, and he was so disrespectful, and he was yelling at his mom, and she kept saying, no, put it down, no, 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 we're trying to check out. And it was a long line because every store only has one register open. And
True.
yeah, and so she like isn't really doing anything, and so like you could tell that like the superpowers of black moms were activating around her, because everybody was just kind of like, so there's one lady goes, you want my belt,
Oh, 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 oh.
and then somebody else was like, could never be me. So then this lady standing with her son, this little black boy, she's so mad about what she saw that now she's threatening the little boy. And he's like, I didn't do anything. She's like, you better not ever talk to me that way. So now he's over here like, golly,
Yes, we get the preface treatment. That's what I like to call it, because we you could have just thought about it, and the
some,
black mom knows. It's like they have telepathy.
she wakes up
And
like, what did you
she wakes up in the middle of the night. What you gonna say tomorrow? What was that? No, you're not. Go back to bed. I'm already in bed. I was asleep. You woke me up. I don't
and then just
understand
like, you
right
better
now
get
what's
up on
going on.
time. Like, saying like, that, and then just saying how black moms will just say ridiculous things, but it makes sense. Like telling my kids, if I have to leave them in the car to run in the store, all right, now, y'all get kidnapped. I was like, y'all gonna be in trouble. And them being like, what? I said, you need to be more concerned with them kidnappers leaving you alone, so that you don't get in trouble. And my daughter's just like, it just makes no sense. I said, figure it out.
Yeah,
I said, you
figure
better
it
be in
out.
this car when I get back. And so we joke. And so Morgan, the youngest, is always like, yeah, I'll tell him, like, yeah, you're going to have to just leave us. Like, because I'm more scared of my mom than what she going to do to us. Like, just leave us. Like,
That's like back in the day. I remember hearing, you better not get your ass whooped. You
you
get
have to
your
deal with
ass
me
whooped.
when you get.
You gonna have to deal with me when you get home. So you better win.
Yeah, I had a grandmother like that.
Yeah,
She
that's
was
old
tough as
school.
nails.
That's old school.
Yeah.
So would you consider yourself more of a modern mom, a traditional mom, a hybrid? What would you say?
I'm definitely a hybrid. I am new, like, like a modern mom in the sense of like I care what my kids have to say and like how they view me and feel about me, and I communicate with them. But traditional in the sense of, you know, I will get my kids together. Like, I'm not big on like corporal punishment. I don't do spankings, but you definitely gonna still get that fear factor that, like, black moms give you, like,
Hmm. That look.
yeah, or that look of like, just wait till we get home. Like, and so for me, because I'm a communicator, I'm a talker, and I don't like discipline my kids like through like spankings. I talk to them, and so like I think there are times they wish I would just like, can I just get the spanking, because
Hmm.
I'm constantly just like, we gonna talk this all the way through, and then it's just like, oh Lord, mom knows how to make me feel bad, like.
Very interesting childhood. Very interesting, and the fact that you had to be the person to take care of the family while your mom is battling with possibly mental health and issues, which is very
Mm-hmm.
prominent in our community, in the African American community, that is. And then a father who also became susceptible to what I would call the crack epidemic of Washington, D.C.,
Mm-hmm.
and the world, really, or the country. And you had to step up and do things at
Yeah.
the age of 12, and I'm sure probably before that.
Mm-hmm.
What type of impact did
Mm-hmm.
that have on the decisions that you made for yourself at that time and your future?
Um, I feel like growing up, I definitely had to be sometimes my own parent. I had to be the adult and make decisions, the grown up decisions that kids my age typically wouldn't think to make. And one of those was deciding to go to boarding school. So the year before I went, my sister went, and so experiencing that year with her being away and me being like, okay, I don't want to stay here, and looking around my environment and being like, well, what is going to become of me? Um, I knew I was a good student, and I knew that I made good decisions, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm still like, I could fall. I don't want to be a mom, and I was grateful. So I went to a boarding school in Mississippi, called the Pineywood School, and I think that really further helped polish me getting a good sense of self of what it is to be black. Because that school was a historically black boarding school, um, but they are like steeped in tradition, and they made you proud to be black, and just knowing like a boarding school for black kids in the South, that was a feat in itself to be created. 'Cause at the time they didn't want black people being educated, and this guy, um, Lawrence C. Jones, decided I'm going to start this school. And it started from a log cabin, and so the whole point of the school was to like teach kids how to be self sufficient, and their motto was educating the head, heart, and hand. So we were all required to have jobs there. That also helped defray the cost of tuition. So like when people hear that I've gone to boarding school, and they're like, "Oh, did you come from money?" I'm like, "No, my parents was poor." But the school took everybody in, regardless of your economic background, and they found ways. So like we had to work, so you could be working on the farm, in the kitchen, in the dorms, all of that. The kids kind of helped keep the school running. But it gave you discipline. You had to get up at 5 in the morning. You had to
Wow.
be in the dining hall. By this time, we had morning devotion. Then we had class. Then you had work study. Then you had dinner. Then it was study time and a little free time. But that school changed. I think it saved my life, and it changed the trajectory of where I probably would have ended had I not gone there. So I went to that school. My sister went. My twin brother came the year after me.
Wow.
So I was there from eighth grade all the way up until I graduated. And so it gave me stability because, again, back home, I never knew it may come home and the lights would be out, or it may be the lights and the water is out, or the lights, water, and there's no food. And so to know that, like, okay, one, I'm safe. I don't have to worry about, because that was the other thing I had issues with feeling safe.
Mm-hmm.
And so being in a place where I felt protected, they still had that spiritual base for us, that anchored us. So I just, I was fortunate to have to be able to go to that school and to become the person I am. Because I think that school had a lot to do with it, as well. And especially as an adult looking back, I can say, no, of course, when you're a kid, you may take it for granted a little bit. But as you're older, you're like, no, that school really, like, changed my life. Like, because sometimes, like, shudder to think where I would have been. So it gave me discipline, and I think, and then it exposed me to other people, because like the school had kids from all over the United States, kids from Africa, and like from like the Caribbean. So it was like a melting pot. So it was pretty cool going to school, and like now you know about all the trends, the kids from Cali and Chicago, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's where I got introduced to all types of music. So that was fun. So I think I definitely got like a lot of interesting experiences, and it taught me how to also deal with people, because I was dealing with such diverse people from different regions of the United States and abroad, that I think that was my first lesson in learning how to navigate. But boarding school definitely helped shape me. And even just, the school of hard knocks and the way I was brought up, it taught me to have an appreciation for things. So like, um, when it comes to like food and people being hungry, like it matters to me because I know what it's like to actually say, like, I know what it's like to starve. I know what it's like to wonder where your next meal is coming from, to wonder will there be lights on when I get home. On the way, I think I also developed like a little bit of a resentment having to constantly be the one thinking like the adult when I'm like, I do want to be a kid. And so as I became an adult, I think it made me a very, very like severely serious person. And I think as a result, like I didn't have time to like make connections with people. Because we moved around a lot, and so like I would go to boarding school, I would come home for the breaks, and we'd be living somewhere else. And so I started just not making connections with people, and I realized that carried over into my adulthood, and where I was just very guarded, and I was kind of doing the same thing. Don't say anything to anybody, keep it behind the wall. And like when I started to deal with my own like mental health issues and anxiety and depression, and like just kind of being behind this wall and having to like break myself out of it and saying like I can't repeat this cycle of don't say anything to anybody and mask and pretend like you're okay when you're not. And so for me, being able to realize to myself you're not okay and getting the help and the therapy, um, that is why now I feel like Tiffany is evolving into something else now. She's becoming, who she was meant to be. And I'm just standing in my own confidence of like, one, I'm enough. Two, I have great ideas and things to contribute. So that's like me. I'm just an evolving, going in the right direction person. It may look all over the place, but I like where I'm going. I like who I'm becoming. I realize that I've become better in so many ways. Better to myself. I'm a better parent because I decided to take care of myself. So that's me. I'm just
I love it, and I think that we are all anxious to hear more about Tiffany Michele. Um, Before we close out, is there anything else that you think people should know about you?
um well, I did learn how to pick a lock.
Again, don't fuck with Tiffany Michele.
Yes.
So there you have it again. You know, Tiffany, it's been remarkable hearing some of your story. Again, I know that we're going to hear more about you.
You will.
I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversations outside of this podcast. And so, people, get ready. Get ready to hear more from Tiffany Michele. She is hilarious. She is very well put together, a mother, a nurturer, someone who has had some diverse experiences, and that's exactly why we're doing this podcast together. In the next episode, you'll hear a little bit about me, but for now, again, thank you,
Thank you.
Tiffany, and I am thankful for this opportunity to work with you on this podcast, and
I'm excited.
I'm very excited. I think we have a
Yeah.
lot to share with people,
Yeah.
and
Lots of people to meet and learn about too.
lots
So
of people to learn about and meet. You're absolutely right. And today was the first time we got to meet you.
yes, I'm looking forward to the world meeting you. So I'm excited.
All right, till the next time, folks.
I think it's time to give the mic to Andy. Oh, wow.
Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
8, 7, 8, 9, 12, 11, 13,
Do you know your numbers?
1.
What do you think of when you think of mom?
A brave and intelligent woman. And also a single mom who works 2 jobs, who loves her kids.
It
and
never stops.
When you think about mom, what do you think about?
I think about a fabulous, a fabulous woman with 3 kids, make that 4 actually, if you're including Vivian, who tries her best and wants to take care of her children.
Vivian, could you come to the front, Vivian? We're going to
Vivian.
do a performance evaluation. Oh.
Hey, no barking, no barking, no barking, no barking.
I describe her as a very funny and very loving and kind mom. I'd say that she's very outgoing with the people that she likes to be around. And yeah.
Okay. What is one of your favorite memories with or about your mom?
My favorite memories is anytime we're like just together and just hanging out. Even when it's just us doing nothing, I just like her presence being there. So,
Okay. What is something that your mother always says to you?
roundhouse, roundhouse, uppercut, uppercut.
Okay.